All right. Hey, good morning, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Sunday, July 28th, 2024. This is your daily tropical update where we are back after a long little break. We had Hurricane Beryl a few weeks ago, and then it got really quiet in the Atlantic Basin, and we haven't had anything to talk about for about 2, 3 weeks now. It's been kind of nice, been a nice break, and very common in July to see these long stretches of not much going on. But that silence is starting to come to a close. We're getting into the month of August pretty soon, and right on schedule, the Atlantic Basin has its next threat starting to try to cook up. We are watching a tropical wave located in the central Atlantic Basin in the main development region this morning. It's about, 1,500, maybe 1,200 miles to the east of the Lesser Antilles or so this morning. The wave is circled on your screen here. This is the only threat in the basin right now, but this is a fairly healthy tropical wave we've been watching since it left Africa a few days ago, and it is starting to garner some more support from the computer models that it might be developing as it moves generally east-northeast for the week ahead. By towards the end of the week, this will be somewhere north of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, and it should be moving towards the Bahamas this weekend with a future uncertain from there. Could recurve, could move towards Florida, could slip over into the Gulf of Mexico. There's a lot of potential outcomes from there. So we're going to talk a little bit about it this morning. We're not going to go super in depth because this isn't even an invest yet. It's way out there, and we have a long time to track it. But I just want to get something out there because I know people are going to start seeing stuff on other pages, and we want to get ahead of the hype here. So, latest in the National Hurricane Center this morning: 40% chance of development in the next 7 days, 0 in the next 2 days. So that tells you right here we're going to have something to watch for a while down the road. Hurricane Center generally draws this track in more of a broad brush, and when you look at this chart or this graphic, you really don't want to start like putting cones and lines on it and going, oh no, it's going straight for Florida, because that's just one possibility. The system could develop anywhere in this orange guff. It could develop right here and turn out. It could develop here and go this way. Technically, I mean, there's really no. This doesn't tell you much more than a general area to watch. So when you're looking at these charts, especially these ones that look kind of ominous for the Southeast U.S., kind of just take it with a grain of salt. This is more of a broad brush to say, hey, something we're watching, but this is not meant to be a track or a chart or a cone by anyone's stretch of the imagination. So the satellite presentation is pretty interesting this morning on our wave. Moving through the central Atlantic, wave axis, kind of something like that, I'd reckon, some degree, low level flow, kind of like that. A lot of the thunderstorm activity we do have this morning is though weighted off to the east and northeast, which is good for the wave because the overall northern air that's going to try to get down and penetrate into the storm, the drier, more stable air across the central Atlantic around the big Bermuda Azores high, is not very strong. It's a little bit more of a parallel flow, and it's got enough moisture on the northern side to kind of shield itself to some degree. So this wave, given when we see these waves come off, the ones that have the best chance to survive kind of have this pattern, and this one definitely does. So as it moves along over the next couple of days, it is going to start gaining some latitude. We don't expect this to cross over the southern, islands into the Caribbean. Instead, we expect this to kind of move in a more generally northwest kind of direction, and it should pull up near the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico sometime later this week. Let's go ahead and show you the computer model just in the short term. European model kind of shows that envelope well, and then it shows it kind of merging with some more moisture up above it, and then by Wednesday, Thursday, you've got a nice pocket of moisture and a much sharper wave axis in a developing system trying to get going by Thursday or Friday. Looking ahead at the charts valid 0Z Thursday, we're going to look at wind shear, dry air, and the general upper wave pattern just to kind of give you an idea. And overall, the storm is going to have some favorable aspects as it gets into Thursday, Friday. Not much before that, but by Thursday, Friday, it's going to be over very warm water. It will likely be north of our big 3 islands here, Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, which is Dominican Republic and Haiti, right here, and then Cuba. Any of those islands can cause damage to tropical systems. They all have mountains and they're all kind of big and whatever, but this storm is probably going to skirt them, so it's not going to have to deal with them, and being on the northern side of them is much better than being on the southern side for the storm because the northerly winds won't be hitting those mountains. It'll be to the north, so there's less interruption. The overall wind shear pattern looks pretty favorable. There's going to be some stronger winds across the Caribbean to start the pattern going into Thursday. But we work into Friday, Saturday, a lot of that diminishes, and there's just this upper high left over, and this is not really wind shear. This is just upper outflow from the storm, and it looks like it's going to have a nice anticyclone aloft and generally light winds throughout the upper atmosphere to work with. So wind shear does not appear through the column to be highly detrimental to the storm, let's say. Dry air does not seem to be a huge deal either. There's going to be some dry air in the region, but if I step this forward a little bit, you can see it's got a nice moisture envelope. And again, that moisture axis spanning way out to the east indicating that that drier air is going to have to be kind of like rebuffed and go around the storm. And it's going to have a nice little cocoon to kind of like get itself going in. So again, I think that this is going to also be favorable for the system. So I don't see any huge problems with dry air. And the upper level pattern in some general way or another is going to show some kind of weakness over the eastern U.S. Now, whether that weakness is back towards the plains or it's well off the coast of Maine remains to be seen. There's going to be a lot of spread in the long wave pattern this time out. But generally, it looks like to go towards the weekend that we've had this persistent weakness over the southeast U.S. We've had a big ridge over the western U.S. We've had a trough over the eastern U.S. And that looks like it's going to remain. So you'll have some kind of weakness over the southeast U.S., which should try to draw the storm in some capacity towards it. Now, that will largely depend on timing, the juxtaposition of the trough and where the storm is, and how strong the storm is. If it's still weak and sloppy by Thursday, Friday, it might be more willing to slip to the south in the southern Bahamas and go, south of Florida. If it's a bit stronger, it might want to feel that upper trough and turn more towards it, maybe towards the Carolinas, or do a full recurve out to sea. There's a lot of possibilities there. But that's what causes that problem, because the fork in the road, if you will, is right around the Bahamas. So no matter when you point the fork like that, there's just a lot of potential spread in between where this thing could go. So it's when it's like, well, how do you not know who it's going to go towards? Well, you don't, because if it winds up slipping under that trough and gets in the Gulf of Mexico, then it's a whole new set of rules for where it might want to go. So we're just going to be watching it, but it does look like this will be coaxed towards the U.S., but definitely has potential to turn away or go into the Gulf or do anything in between. So we don't really lead too far into that. GFS, for what it's worth, on the deterministic run, doesn't really develop this thing. It just kind of like, on this run it did, but then if you go back to the more recent runs, like if I go to today's GFS, which it should be on there, but maybe it's not. Today's GFS doesn't develop it at all, but yesterday morning's GFS, same run, 6Z, showed a hurricane hitting the Keys. So this is just one run difference. It doesn't take much to show that one day can make a big difference in forecasts. So these models, when you run deterministics this far out, you're going to get a lot of wacky responses. So don't take these for gospel. They could be a whole range of options. So don't be like, oh, well, the GFS shows a hurricane hitting the Keys. This is what dishonest weather guys do. They post this on their page. Hey, the Keys, get ready. Next Sunday, you got a hurricane coming. They don't know what they're talking about. The model doesn't know what it's talking about. And you really shouldn't trust people that don't know what they're talking about. So just let the models do their thing and cook. It's going to be a while before we're using deterministics for anything more than just showing you some potential outcomes. The European model does bring this up near the Bahamas on its latest run and begins to recurve it well offshore of Florida for whatever it's worth and moves a tropical storm to a hurricane away and out to sea. So, just in these two models, you have hurricane hitting the Keys to it missing completely. So it's just a potential outcome. It's one of a million. We can look at the ensembles, which give us more potential outcomes. And the GFS is still lukewarm on the storm developing, but it is showing some signs. The Euro has been much more consistent with developing it. It developed it first, it developed it stronger. And the Euro is at least leaning towards an offshore Florida turn, but that would still leave the Carolinas in play, New England in play, and some other folks. And then this doesn't discount the potential for this to move into the Gulf of Mexico. It wouldn't take much for this to change. So right now, we're just watching this is the bottom line. It's not even an invest yet. I think we'll probably tag it as an invest either probably this afternoon or maybe early Monday. I'm expecting the hurricane hunters to fly out to St. Croix and St. Vincent and the Virgin Islands and go out there and maybe take a look at it later this week. Very possible they'll send some planes out there. NOAA will probably send a bird or two out there. I think we're going to get more information through the week, but really this could be threatening towards the weekend. So we'll watch it through the week, but like later this week is when we're going to see this near the Bahamas and Puerto Rico. And then we're going to have like a much more, okay, this is probably who's in play, who's not. So we're going to keep an eye on it and we will bring you the latest, but stay tuned for the page for all the routine updates. But that's what I got for you guys this morning on it. It's just too far out to say much more than that right now. So that's all I got for you guys this morning. As always, thanks for watching and have a good one.